Hey guys, I just want to let you know that I'm now a certified spiritual life coach. If you resonate with the topics and lessons that my guests and I discuss on my podcast, and you feel that you could use some empowerment and direction in your journey of becoming who you truly are, consider booking a free discovery call with me on my website at kindlemccullough.com. And now on to the episode. Hey guys, I'm excited today. I'm here with my friend Allie. She's a past life regression and Akashic record practitioner, and met her on Threads, I believe, and became Instagram friends and did a session with her, and thought I'd have her on to talk about these things. So welcome, Allie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure thing. So just thought I'd start, kind of what we do a lot, and just asking you about your journey, your life, and how you kind of got to where you are now.
Yeah, great. Well, I grew up actually as a Christian. My dad was Baptist and my mom was Catholic, and later on transitioned to Lutheran. So my parents were divorced, and every other Sunday I was either going to a Baptist church or a Lutheran church. And as time went on, I started to question things, just in general. And I found myself reading the book of Revelations so many times and questioning the end of times and looking for answers as to what happens after this life. And, that was just as I was younger, and as I got older, started to question more and more things about church and, just the spiritual realm was not something I ever really thought I would be interested in, especially growing up with parents who were so religious. But it was interesting. The day that my father passed away, I was driving home from an event at work, and I had a vision that I had a heart attack and I crashed my car into the wall on the freeway. And I started feeling really sick, and I ended up going home. And a couple hours later, I received a call that my father had passed away while driving his truck, and he had crashed his truck. No, it was into a ravine, and there were no other cars involved, but I believe that was my intuition waking up. And after his passing, he started sending me signs like yellow butterflies from a time that we had gone to a butterfly exhibit, and a big yellow butterfly landed on his shoulder. And he had the biggest smile, and he was the happiest I think I'd ever seen him. And that memory just seared into my brain. And I think he knows that. So he sends me those yellow butterflies. And then shortly after that, my father-in-law passed away. And he was always, every time my husband and I were with him, he would always give us money. And, even if he was struggling himself, he always found a way to give us money or secretly deposit money into our checking account. And after his passing, we started seeing coins all over the house. And I did some reading, and I was starting to question a lot of things. And I ended up needing a kidney transplant recently. And we hadn't been going to church for a while, but I still believed in God. I still believe in God today. And I just started receiving signs and synchronicities. And, once you start seeing them, you really start paying attention to numbers and things like that. And the day that I received a call, it was the third call that I had gotten that there was a kidney for me. I wasn't expecting it to go through because the other two had fallen through. And when I looked at my phone, I got the numbers 555, and I literally heard my dad's voice saying, "This is it, kid. This is the one." And sure enough, I got my kidney transplant on December 27th of 2023. And, prior to all this happening, in 2017, I was diabetic. I was very overweight, obese, and very sick, and quite a ways away from actually getting a kidney transplant. And I had a dream where my dad came into our garage. My husband and I were cleaning out the garage for some reason, and he comes running in, and I look up and I say to him, "What are you doing here? You're dead." And he says to me, "This is very important. I need you to wake up. Your blood sugar is dangerously low, and if you don't wake up, it's going to be bad." So he said, "Wake up." I woke up, and sure enough, I tested my blood sugar, and it was dangerously low. And so I believe that was a visitation, and he saved my life that day. And
Wow.
Over the course of time, I've realized that his passing was actually a blessing for me, even though we had a difficult relationship there towards the end. He saved my life. He was a big part of my spiritual journey, and he is helping me even today. He's sending me messages and helping me grow. He also was a part of my healing my trauma, my childhood trauma. As a child, he was a great person. Like, he was very friendly, very outgoing. Everybody wanted to be his friend. He's very good looking, and he was a great uncle. It was more of, our relationship was more, I was the parent and he was the child. And I spent a lot of my childhood trying to cheer him up because he was lonely. And I was trying to give him what was missing in his life, but that's not something a child can ever fulfill. And, through the course of time, I went through therapy. But, therapy can only get you so far. And the therapy helped me grow my inner child. But there was still a void. I wasn't on speaking terms with my dad when he passed away. And when you have kids, it's interesting. You see the faults that your parents have repeated in your children. And as a mom, you kind of become that mama bear, and you're like, it's okay that you treated me this way, but I'm not going to let it happen to my kids. And that's kind of the situation that it was. And so I said, I think we need to take a break right now, and we can come back to this later. Unfortunately, during that time, he had passed. So there was this unresolved pain between the two of us. And that's when I decided to get a hypnotherapy session. It was actually a life between lives session that I went back in this current life, back to the womb, and received revelations there about my mom being just overjoyed about being pregnant and my dad not being ready. And it's interesting because your soul is able to go in and out of the womb and able to understand the emotions and the feelings that your parents are experiencing. And going back even further, I was able to view planning that life. And during that session, my dad came forward And I apologized to not talking to him, not being on speaking terms with him when he passed away. And he said to me, and, a lot of mediums and psychics will tell you that once you pass, you are still the same person, but you're more expanded. You're more emotionally mature. And so you let go of little things that we hold on to here on earth. And he stopped me. He interrupted me and said, "You don't need to apologize. You did nothing wrong." And he said, "I hope you can forgive me for not being the parent that you needed." And that is exactly what I needed to hear. And
must be really healing.
It was. And that was the moment that I learned that, there's got to be millions of people out there who are walking around with unhealed wounds, who have been in therapy, but there's a small piece missing that they just can't get back through traditional therapy. And that's why I started doing what I do, New Leaf Hypnosis.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit and ask a few questions. I was interested. You were talking about when you were young, how you talked about, or you were really interested in revelations in the end times. I've had some other guests. It depends on the church and the denomination, but some are very focused on the end times. And the ones that are usually have this, belief that there's going to be like the rapture. And so people's going up to heaven that are Christians, and then all these tragic events happening, and some people getting saved and some people not, and it can be very anxiety or traumatic for people, in the sense of like, am I going to be getting raptured, or am I not, or is my friends or my family going to stay here or not, and is this going to happen in my lifetime? And I know it's been hard. Was your church, was it like that for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, mostly the Baptist teachings, for sure, are, you have to be saved if you want to go to heaven. But what I've learned over the course of my studies is that if you look at a lot of this, there's a fear of separation. There's a fear in getting you to comply. And in my many conversations with my spirit guides and source, God himself, there is no separation. You're guaranteed to be there. The only judgment that exists is really here on earth.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also you said something that was interesting, that you became more spiritual, and that's not something you thought you'd be interested in growing up religious. So I guess my question is, how do you think that growing up religious pushed you away from spirituality, or maybe like, what do you mean by that? Because some people would just be like, well, religious is spiritual. How is that separate?
Religion is, I feel, a little bit more of a controlled environment. You're told to go to church, be a good person and accept Jesus into your heart, and you're going to go to heaven. And spiritual is recognizing that you're loved by God, whether you have accepted him into your heart or not. There is a place beyond earth. It's another realm. It's a spiritual realm. And we were created there, and we're all going there when we die, and we will come back again. And what I've also learned is that there is no end. There is no planned end. And I I believe that all of that was created to control man.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Definitely think since I've become, more spiritual myself, that it's opened me up to explore things more, and also feel being free to pursue my path, and whatever other people say is my path, that's input to take in, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's my path. So I think I've become more free to trust in my relationship and understanding of what God's telling me, into pursuing that, and know that He'll help me, correct me as I go along. So yeah, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to today, do you want to talk a little bit about what past life regression is, and Akashic record reading?
Yes, absolutely. So we've lived many lives. Some of us lived lives that are not even on Earth. Actually, I did a past life regression on you, and you were an alien from another planet. Um, I've had regressions where people have gone back and they're not even human; they're animals or plants. Um, and in a life where I was regressed, I was a French, royalty. I wasn't a princess, but I was of some sort of wealth, and I was miserable. Um, I've seen past lives for myself of when I met my husband for the first time. Um, you know, our first incarnation together, and you know, so a past life regression starts with a very relaxing setup. It takes you into a very relaxed state, and in your mind there are memories that are held on to throughout all of your incarnations, and they're a lot more accessible than you think they are, and you can actually access them through meditation. But it's you when you have a guide like me guiding you through the process, you can obtain more information about that life and how it pertains to your current life and how it can help you today. You know, and as far as the Akashic records goes, that is more of learning what your soul's journey entails. What are you carrying with you through many incarnations? Is there Are there special gifts that you are born with, that you come into this life with? For me in particular, I was carrying some karmic patterns from a previous lifetime that I needed to clear up, as unfortunately I wasn't a good person in that past life, and I have been experiencing the repercussions of that behavior in this lifetime. And so now that I've recognized them and I have become healing them, my life is starting to change. And after that initial Akashic record reading for myself, I woke up the next day and the memories of the pain that I had experienced in this life were starting to become fuzzier, which means we can basically rewrite our history. We're not erasing it. We're still recognizing that it's still there, but we're rewriting it so that it changes the trajectory of our future. I've had clients where they've learned that they are actually very magical people and they're just untapped. They've had things that have prevented them from moving forward. And I believe that actually we all have magic within us. We all have different spiritual gifts that we're given, and we just need that key to unlock them.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Is there certain like things on your path that's helped you, um, be more firm in your belief and understanding of past life regression and Akashic records? I know that, it took my awakening was first helpful in the sense that I had these insights that like, hey, I think reincarnation's real, or like dimensions, and kind of feeling into energy, things that weren't really on my radar, I didn't have an understanding or belief in before. And then it took me to start investigating my spiritual journey for me to, give myself permission to explore and then reinforce my belief in these things through books. I think that, like you just recommended me, Dolores Cannon book, Keepers of the Garden. It was really
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years ago, I read her Three Waves of Volunteers. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a multitude of things, including reading lots of books. I'm going through them like crazy. It's interesting how your desires change. Like I watch less TV than I ever did. You know, even music that I used to listen to doesn't really interest me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like
Mm-hmm.
it literally is like leveling up. It's not just that. There are meditations that I've done, um, exploring, conversations with my spirit guides, which is very important, and that's, jumping back to past life regression. That's when I was able to establish my relationship with my spirit guides. I got to see them for the first time and essentially introduce them. And since that time, it's like they're always kind of right here, right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they have different personalities, and you can almost feel like they're standing there giving you their opinions of things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they've told me things, and I've channeled other spiritual beings and ascended masters, um, and asking questions, just getting out there and asking questions, and trusting your intuition. That's the biggest thing. There's a difference between listening to your ego and your intuition. And, prior to my spiritual awakening, I thought I had all a sixth sense. I believed that I was right. But there's a difference between feeling right and knowing that you're right. And, I can't really describe it. I'm sure it's different for every person. But for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it is literally a gut feeling. And I know that this is the answer. Um, listening to psychics, psychic mediums, uh, watching them channel, and asking myself, does this resonate? Because a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
that you hear, does it resonate with you? Does it make sense? Do you feel it in that gut that that's right for you? And most of those things, yes, I've been, received a message that yes, this is true. This is, or yes, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I remember channeling my guides one time and saying, you know, is this and that real? And is it this or that? And my guide said, why can't it be both? Both things can exist. So it's not one truth. There are many truths.
Yeah, I think how I think about it is there's, again, going back to the dimensions kind of idea, there's layers of truth, I would say. And so,
Yes.
on one level, like physical reality, like, oh, my body is real. That's
Yeah.
truth. But in another sense, I was just reading recently about how like atoms, they don't actually touch. They're always like bouncing off each other. So it's more like pressure. So nothing actually touches. And so you're like, what? How does that make sense? But we have this idea that we touch things and it, you know, we have these sensations. But in all actuality, there's a deeper truth that it's not exactly like that. And so it's a partial truth, and there's a deeper layer of reality which holds a deeper truth. And, we can only understand to a certain level, but, yeah. And, like you said about, again, truth, how I think about like wisdom, like what is wisdom, or how do we know it something is wisdom? And I realize it's something that we have. First off, it's a deep intuition, gut feeling, like, oh yeah, that was so beautiful, that was so true. And then after that, our brain tries to go, okay, wait, why was that true? And then we try to make sense of it with our mind. But the first thing is this gut feeling. So, I think it's all important. Our minds are important, and it's important to try to make sense of things and verify things. But I think I would agree that like our deeper layer, our first layer, is this intuition, this gut feeling of what is truth or what is not. And I think that's part of my journey growing spiritually, is to listen, to feel, to trust that a gut feeling, and that is this really important. And I think, a lot of times Christianity can really focus on the logic or the trusting of others, or, what they would say, how to translate the Bible. But really, we all come at things with our subjective perspectives, and it's important to acknowledge that, and really seek the truth for ourselves. And so I think with like past life, I think that how would I'm gonna ask you about karma. Like, what is karma, and how does that work with past lives to our life now?
So karma kind of gets a bad rap. Like in today's society, you think, oh, somebody cut you off in traffic, they're gonna wreck their car later. That's karma, but it doesn't really work like that. Karma is something that we carry with us. It's not a point system. It's a lot of the perception that you think it is it's not. It's something that we carry with us through many lives. It's lessons that we have to learn, and you have to learn from other perspectives. So you may have wronged somebody egregiously in this life, and your next life, you're going to feel that feeling, and you're going to need to untangle that to learn that lesson. And sometimes these karmic patterns can be undone in the spiritual realm. You look back and you can see how you hurt your family, and you can try to help them from the spiritual realm. But sometimes it doesn't work like that. And you have to come in to your next life, and you have to experience that pain. Now, it's not going to be exactly the same. It's not going to be, you hurt somebody physically in this lifetime, and so that's going to have the exact same thing's going to happen to you in that next lifetime. No, you're going to experience the same kind of feelings and emotions, and you need to untangle that. For example, in my karmic pattern through my Akashic records, I was a male that was in very high power, and I had wronged many women. And in my current life, I have struggled with men of authority. And that's because I've carried that feeling of hurt towards women into this incarnation. So that's what I've needed to untangle. And that is something that I have worked on, and is a lifelong lesson. It's not something that you can just overcome overnight. Like I said, karma is a big thing. It's not cutting somebody off in traffic and then later paying for that.
Yeah, that's great. I think in Christianity, there's this whole discussion about like, are we saved through faith or works? And I think that a lot of times Christians can think of karma as like kind of a works based, or we're trying to work for, what we'd say our salvation. We can say it in a spiritual sense of, going to a higher realm or something like that. But it's more reframe of like, it's not that we're doing something for God. It's that we're just working to heal our trauma and working to do our own work, which then reverberates, and that does help other people as well. And so it's more like natural consequence than something that we're earning for ourselves in a selfish way.
Right. And, by doing good deeds, and that's what I love about Christianity, is that they're encouraging people to do good things, but you don't have to be a Christian to do good things.
Right.
And by doing a good deed, by helping somebody, by listening to that voice, which is likely your spirit guide speaking to you, help this person, let them go ahead of you in the grocery store, or write a little nice note and leave it on that car. That raises a vibration of the collective. And that's in bringing more love into the world. And that's really what's needed. So I think, whether you're spiritual or religious, Christian, what have you, by doing good things, by bringing more love to the planet, we're raising the vibration of the entire planet, which is what we want.
Yeah, 100%. Christianity say they bring the kingdom of heaven on earth. So another good way of talking about it. I think, the understanding of past lives can be helpful in the sense of realizing that we've, been male, female, we've been different colors. It helps break down this tribalism that we can get into and be like, oh, I'm special in this, or who I am now. And, we've done amazing things. We've done terrible things in past lives. And so I think it helps increase empathy and understanding, like I've been there, whether I realize it now or not. And, I've done this, I've done that. I've been this identity. So don't get caught up in these things. I think it's just that balance of loving ourselves, but also not getting caught up in shame either. And so realizing that, life is, it's a learning lesson. And so it's a classroom. So it's take what we can to learn.
I find it a little funny when people, certain people mock a certain kind of other people. And I think to myself, you were probably that person in another life, or you will be in your next life. So it's important that we embrace all of humanity, whether you are, gay, straight, or a certain race, or transgender, whatever. We've all been that kind of person in a different lifetime, or we will be.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that, psychology is beginning to understand about how our family affects our genes, and we can pass down traumas and character traits and different things. And so, I don't think it's that much of a spiritual leap to see how past lives can also affect how we are today. And so I think it's really helpful to understand ourselves a little bit more, not get caught up in the past lives as like an escape thing, as a fantasy, but to see, what's really important about it is how's it affecting me today, and how can I work to clear this, or, too, could also be like, what are strengths you've carried into this life, and how can you continue to use that, for the benefit of the collective.
Absolutely. I mentioned before how I was a French royalty person in another life. And in that incarnation, at the end, we were asking my spirit guides, what was the point of that life? And it was actually to give me a perspective of a family member, of how they have come at me throughout my life and have, pushed certain things upon me that I rejected. And it actually gave me a perspective of their life. And it gave me more forgiveness and love for them. And instead of me feeling my feelings, I got to see how their life was. So sometimes it's interesting to see a mermaid or an old farmer or an alien, but sometimes the message is just, here's what you need to see and here's what you're not understanding, and
Mm-hmm.
take this with you, and this will make you a better
Right.
person.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for those who are skeptical, and, I always have a level of skepticism about past life regression and stuff like that. I think that, even if, well, number one, I think that the, our humanness always comes into play. So there might be some elements that are fantasy, but even if it's all fantasy or whatever, at the very least, it's still delving into the psyche and what's going on, and whether or not it was true that it was an actual past life is still telling us things about ourselves that can help us.
Right. And that's absolutely true. There's a lot of skepticism out there, and I don't deny that. Um, but if you think about it too, like a dream, have you ever had a dream where you woke up and you're like, well, that was ridiculous. I don't understand that. But then you had more
Mm-hmm.
clarity for an issue that
Mm.
you have been experiencing, and you're able to solve that, and you're able to address that issue that's in your life. And that's kind of the same thing. It's giving you another perspective, another way for you to think about things.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's great. Yeah, and so the Akashic records, I've also heard to it as being like that's another word for this concept of like the book of life, like the record of everything that's happened in life or the universe, and that we can have access to that. But I think there's stipulations on like what we have access to or not, right?
Absolutely. You only have the ability to look at your own life. Now, you can get permission from others to look into theirs as it relates to you. So, if you had a child and you wanted to read their Akashics, you would need to get their permission in order for you to do a full reading on them, or you can see how their life relates to yours and how your karmic patterns are intertwined, how your lives have crossed, over time throughout incarnations.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, can you explain how Akashic records are a little bit different and how they're helpful compared to like past life regression?
So the experience is completely different. Now I've explained before that past life regressions, the way you see that is different for every person. It's either a seeing, a hearing, a feeling, or a knowing. In my case, it's a seeing and a hearing. Um, when you're in the Akashic records, it's completely different. It's complete blackness, and there's like little flashes of information, and you're hearing the guide talk to you throughout this session, and they start providing you the information. They are giving you what you need to know, and you can ask for more information, and they're willing to share what they can with you. But sometimes they will tell you, you don't get to know that. This is not, either you're not ready, or the collective is not ready, or this is really just none of your business,
Hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think it can be helpful in times of like transition in life or just change or you're looking for direction. Um, Again, just like anything, you don't ever want to give up your power in the sense of like this information, use it to help figure out truth, but also don't just take it in blind faith. And but it's always helpful to get some guidance and direction. And um, again, I think it helps us tune up our own intuition. And so then we go from the session then on, and may be able to see truth better, or see the path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're still human and you're still going to make
Right.
decisions based on your emotions and feelings. But, and of course, there's free will involved. You know, they can give you advice just like a friend can. And that's really up to you to take it, to apply it to your life or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's helpful. Part of the Akashic record reading is to meet with your guides, and so I think it's helpful to feel into certain energies and archetypes of, um, what you kind of want to embody in your own life, where you want to go, and also what kind of archetypes, what they're saying to you and how they're helping you in different ways. And so, like, for example, one of the guys I met was this feminine energy. And so that helped me to give myself this self-love and be softer with myself in certain ways. But then there was other ones who had this more like warrior masculine energy. And so that helps me, really dig down and buckle up whenever life gets tough. And then, like you said, as you go about life, I think it helps you to examine your thoughts and your feelings and your sensations, and realize when those same type of energies come up, and you're like, oh, that you could think of that as my guide talking to me, and then you can tune into that in a deeper manner than before.
Right. And I think what's so special about your session was you had this other guide that was a childlike, playful energy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
she was there to remind you to not take yourself so seriously. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's one thing I've learned through all of my sessions, is that spirit guides have an incredible sense of humor, and they say that humans take themselves way too seriously, and they're constantly reminding me, laugh at yourself more. You know, you only get this current life, enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that, we can so get caught up in this, religion and beliefs and spirituality, and think of that so serious. And, that's definitely part of it. But, Jesus said, like, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must become like a little child. And, I think it is important, and it's really releases like a burden off your shoulder.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So are there any particular sessions or insights or different things you've learned from these kind of sessions that you want to share?
I've learned so much. It's, one
Hard to
thing.
synthesize.
It's. I'm actually going to take a page from your session, if you don't mind, because I thought
Sure.
yours was so incredible, and I've taken a little bit from every one of them. But one thing that you stated while channeling in the Akashic records was, the more I follow my path, the more authentic I will be. I think a lot of people in this day and age are grappling with this feeling of, sorry, hang on a second.
No worries.
A lot of people are grappling with imposter syndrome. Everybody thinks that they're not good enough because of what? We're being exposed to things on social media, like these perfectly edited videos.
All this comparison.
Things. Yeah. But when you're more authentically you, that's what you need to be. The path will unfold if you're who you really are. And that was something that was really special to hear during your session.
Yeah.
And another...
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, it was great for myself.
Yeah, I'm glad. And that was a message just for the collective. I mean, that was, you know, and then Jesus came in and he gave us an incredible message for the collective that, you know, we're in a time of transition and it's very difficult for many of us, and that to just tune into ourselves. And I just thought that was so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just like you said, there's so much exposure to everybody, but then we can, put ourselves edited or a certain way. So we only get a little snippet of things. So it can give us a false sense of reality and who people are, and again, compare ourselves. And then two, everyone's saying you have to believe this or do this or blah, blah, blah. So there's so much noise. And so,
Yeah,
I think it's a really big call to really go deep inside yourself. And, are we going to continue to be enslaved and directed by the collective voices, or are we going to really dig in and find our unique path?
absolutely. Yeah. Another lesson I learned was actually a recent session. Prior to entering the Akashic records, we were doing a past life regression, and it was a female client, and she kept jumping into many lives. She went from being in China during the turn of the century, to being an explorer in Africa, and then into her own life many years ago. And the message that she received at the end was to be adventurous, because in that first incarnation, she was just so fascinated with ceremony and knowledge, and she was a very intelligent woman, but she wasn't able to explore that because of the time period. And then the second incarnation, where it was a young man who was traveling all over the world just to learn more and hear incredible stories. And then in her current life, when she was traveling, leaving, just quit a job and decided to up and move to a warmer climate. And the message was choose adventure, take those risks. And that was just so beautiful, because how many of us feel like we have to stay in our lane because it's safe? And instead of, following our fantasy and quitting that job and, taking another path entirely. I just, that was so exciting to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I definitely get it. I've been there at times, in the sense of like, I'm an explorer of truth and knowledge, but can do that through books and movies and different things. But and I've been to grad school a couple times, but all of that is secondhand experience, and there's nothing that can really replace firsthand direct experience. And that's so powerful and important, to not just be a bystander and observer of life, to actively participate in it and see what's out there, and it's huge growth opportunities. And there's definitely risk and danger, but I think that also really helps us grow and realize that we're going to learn through that, and we're still safe in the ultimate sense, and we can get back up and keep moving. So that's great.
Absolutely. And on top of that, I mean, you get to explore humanity from another
Mm-hmm.
part of the world, to see how they live.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't realize what you have in your own backyard until you see what else is out there. So,
Right. Actually, that was just my last podcast. So, my guest, she went from Brazil to Europe, and Europe has so many different countries so close together, and she experienced so many different cultures and different kinds of people, and it was just a huge awakening for her. So it was
yeah,
really cool to hear that. Yeah. So thanks for coming on, Allie. I really enjoyed it. It was really great to talk about these things, and again, I enjoyed our session. Yeah. So. Um, Do you want to remind people?
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Yes, again, I offer past life regression, life between lives sessions, Akashic records readings, and guided meditations. If you're just starting out, and just want to explore that a little bit, you can reach me at newleafhypnosis.net. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll make sure to put all those links in the description. So yeah, thanks for coming on. I enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you so much.